Welcome to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast.
Every week, they talk about the Vancouver Canucks with a fair amount of nonsense thrown in.
Sure, they're never the first with the news, nor the best connected, and definitely more off the rails than on.
But they've been talking puck the longest, and that counts for something, right?
So strap in for the longest running, best mediocre Canucks Hockey Podcast.
It's C4 with Chris and Anna.
Hey, it's me, it's Chris. I'm here with Anna. She's late. She made me sit around for 6 hours waiting for her. Welcome, Anna.
Thanks, Chris. Not quite 6 hours, but yes, you were very patient with me because I was at the game and with a friend, and we needed to debrief the game. So.
Yes. And so, what was it that you called it, a swift drink?
Yeah. And you know what? Like, it's so funny because, more power to Taylor Swift, etc. But I'm not a Swiftie. My phone tried to capitalize Swift when I sent that to you. And I was like,
Yeah, just gotta shake it off.
It's just a very English thing to be like Swift drink, Swift off, etc.
Shake it off.
Yeah, exactly. Shake it off. Yeah. We tried to shake it off.
I bet you did. We're going to get into the Vancouver Canucks and maybe the loss that occurred this evening in an attempt to shake it off. But before we do, we had a great episode last week. If for some reason you skipped it, you're tuning in this week, go back and listen. We had a great conversation
100%.
with Ariel Lalonde.
So good.
Yeah. We didn't really get into it during the podcast only because Anna and I were not aware of this. Ariel was joining us from East Coast time. We recorded pretty darn late West Coast time.
Plus we had a post-recording kind of trash sesh. So yeah. More power to Ariel.
Yeah, go back, listen to it, support her, read her article on for the Botchford Project. She is a friend of the show, and she's expressed that she would love to be back, and I think I can speak for both of us by saying we definitely want her to come back and talk with us again. What have you been up to this weekend?
Honestly, a lot of hiding from the rain and watching the Vancouver Canucks, which has been mixed for me. As it has been for everyone. But yeah, not a lot else. I haven't...
Okay, so I've watched the Vancouver Canucks, but I will concede early on in the show that I was also watching the Vancouver Whitecaps. They had a couple of matches this week. Two of those matches overlapped with Vancouver Canucks games, which created a conundrum. I chose to go the Whitecaps route because they were the first of the games. So start one, finish it, and then join Canucks in progress.
On a unlikely win streak, as I understand it.
Unlikely. They currently have 4 wins of 4 matches to start off the MLS season. It's the first time the Vancouver Whitecaps FC have ever won the first 4 matches of in their MLS history. Again, small comparative, but hot start. They're the only 8th team in the MLS ever to go 4-0 in their first 4 matches. Their expected goals is first in the MLS. If this team was more clinical in their finish,
I know
they'd
how
still have 4 wins.
Goals go,
but it would be, it's unbelievable. And I think our listeners know I'm a pretty big fan of the Whitecaps. Soccer was my sport growing up. But your mom was trying to convince me to start up a soccer podcast when we met up. Hi, Anna's mom. I gave it a serious consideration over the last sort of month or so. And I came to the conclusion that I just don't have the time to not so much record a podcast. I could probably find the time to record. I just don't have the time to do the production.
Yeah, the organization side of it. Yeah.
Right? I'm lucky in that with this show, I have you to help alleviate a lot of that. And then we just record and I do the production. But I elected to instead still go down the, creative content highway by launching a newsletter. I've never done a newsletter before. And we're going to give it a go. The first edition, a real one, it actually goes out on Tuesday. If you happen to be a fan of the Whitecaps or just want to support me, I'd love for you to go to from231.ca to go and sign up. And 231 is the section I sit in. So it's really my view, whereas my tagline is from my seat to your inbox.
There you go. We love that. It's exciting. It's like a fan's eye view of the Whitecaps. Yeah.
And
love it.
And it's, I was trying to explain it to someone I know online, and I'm like, it's going to be very much like how we approach this podcast. Like, we don't take ourselves too seriously. We're the best mediocre podcast, 136 on your 137 podcast dial, at least as it pertains to Vancouver Canucks podcast. That's my newsletter's approach. Like, it's just going to be me, a guy who enjoys the game. I'm not going to be giving you hard-hitting analysis. I can barely count to 3. When someone tells me, oh, so-and-so fits well in the 9 spot, I'm like, are you talking baseball terms? Is that like right field?
I mean, I'll be honest, as I've gotten further and further into hockey, I have felt my football analysis slip away. I'm just I barely understand what the positions 1 to 11 are anymore. I'm just kind of oh, I like it for the pretty goals now. I'm not in there for the serious analysis anymore.
No, and and that's the thing, for us.
And if Arsenal want to win 1-0 against Chelsea, I will take it every day of the week.
I did watch that match today. I figured you would be appreciative.
I didn't watch it. I was playing netball.
I watched in your stead.
So thank you. And my roommate, also, who I've cursed to follow Arsenal forevermore, also watched it for me. But it's one of those ones where you would prefer to read the score sheet.
Yeah. Vancouver Canucks need to maybe go to a Whitecaps match, see what it takes to play with aggressive and wild ambition. Because talk at hockey is the opposite
isn't that.
of that.
Nope.
And, to draw another parallel with sort of how the Whitecaps are playing, they're generating so many opportunities that, they'll win a match against FC Dallas 1-0. But throughout the entire match, you knew the Whitecaps were probably going to win. They controlled the play. They were putting opportunity after opportunity towards the net, and that aggressive sort of style allowed them to dictate play. And how many times have you and I talked about how the Vancouver Canucks, when they have that confidence and they start to dictate play,
it can be good.
They succeed.
Yeah.
Again, talk at hockey, not that.
Who is the head coach of the Whitecaps right now?
Jesper Sorensen. So it used to be Vanni Sartini.
Sorensen football.
Yeah, Sorensen football.
But does not equal talk at hockey.
No, and I get his. So again, this is a Canucks podcast here. I'm talking about the Caps. Someone had put together, I think it might have even been the organization, had put together an image of all of the touches or shots that the Whitecaps have had up in their first 3 matches or MLS league matches, where they existed within the penalty area or the 18-yard box, for those that are curious, and within maybe a yard or 2 from it.
Sure.
It's just like a bunch of Whitecaps players. The hockey equivalent would be shots between the circles at the hash marks towards the goal line.
Yeah.
Pretty good, shooting lanes to be, firing a puck towards the net. And that's what the Whitecaps have been doing. So again, Vancouver Canucks, go to a Whitecaps match, take notes. It could help you. Speaking of helping themselves, they got some points this week. We're going to talk a little bit about the week that was. I think, if I recall, you and Ariel were a little bit closer in your prognostication as to how it all turned out. I may have been a little more optimistic than probably I should have been. But hey, it's the Canucks, and I'm Mr. Optimist on the show these last few episodes. The good things is that we're seeing a return to form for a player that we all very much care about, and we've seen a return to the ice for another player we very much care about. So we'll get into all of that and everything else we can think of in your average episode of C4. But before we do, let's rewind. So the Canucks got things underway against the Montreal Canadiens earlier this week. This was sort of that matchup where I believe you and Ariel may have said that they'd lose this, or Ariel, sorry. My daughter.
No, actually, you and Ariel both said win.
Win, okay, because I remember, I had said they're going to win one of the 2 back-to-back. Like
and you said initially that it was going to be the Habs, but if they lose against the Habs, they'll win against.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for remembering such things. I can. I'm old. Mm-hmm. And Vancouver, for all intents and purposes, did what they could in the first two periods to try and win. And what do I mean by this? They were winning faceoffs and taking shots. Two things that have been a problematic area.
Yeah, sure.
For the team so far this season.
Yeah.
But you look at the score sheet and it's Montreal 3, Vancouver 0 after 2. So 2 solid periods of Vancouver Canucks hockey, yet, defensively, they had some breakdowns. And, Quinn, not quite, game ready at this stage.
But game prepared, I guess.
Yeah. So, we can sort of maybe forgive the team in that regard. But what is it about the Vancouver Canucks where they actually have a good aggressive showing and they can't find the production? Like
moral victory, right?
I'm just sort of, looking at some of the, shot attempts at the heat map. And Vancouver was getting good opportunities, but they just couldn't capitalize. And then the few opportunities that Montreal had, well, you've got the goal dots shown there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just past the time for moral victories, right? Like, there were definitely points where you were just like, Canucks are ahead, and play-wise they were at certain points. But Montreal just do have difference makers in Suzuki and Caulfield. Yeah, I do think those two players do make a massive difference. Yeah. Like, Canucks didn't do badly, but they just didn't do good enough. Like, it feels kind of lame to say it like that, but yeah.
No, I think that is a fair assessment. They didn't do poorly, but they didn't do enough. What we saw from them in the third period, though, was a slightly different approach. Let's not shoot the puck all the time. Let's just take shots we think we can score. Petey had a very solid game and arguably a very solid third period. Not only does he get himself on the score sheet, he gets himself on the score sheet on the power play of all things. And then finds himself an assist on the second goal, or on the first goal. Sorry, the Vancouver Canucks have gotten into that position where we've seen them in the past find that goal to tie it up, whether it be with an empty net or late in the game, what have you. The thing about that is the Vancouver Canucks magic, where they could score that empty net, is sort of a last year thing. And Montreal, iced it when Mike Matheson scored with really, seconds left.
Also, Mike Matheson, he will forever be, to me, that guy that just, absolutely wrecked Petey in his rookie season. Immortalized in our own intro or section clip. Isn't that about Mike Matheson?
Half full, half empty?
Yeah. How is that interference when he had the puck?
That might be, yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, F Mike Matheson. But anyway, overall, it was just, very clear to me from that game that offense is still such a huge problem for the Canucks.
Yeah. The Canucks, in losing this game, sort of, not that they had a big advantage in holding on to that sort of last wild card spot, had given it up. They were back into the thick of things, which then amplified the game the next night that they were going to play against the Calgary Flames in Calgary.
Which was already a big deal.
Oh, yeah. A big enough deal that Quinn Hughes was magically healthy. Wasn't healthy against the Habs, but was healthy against the Flames. I'm going to qualify that because, if he's kind of, sort of, maybe not, you don't play him in the back-to-back. And if the 2 games you would play him in the second of the 2. But, yeah, I mean, you and I have had questions as to Quinn's return previously in being healthy enough. And he is now back again. So Quinn Hughes returns to the ice against the Calgary Flames. Vancouver, having figured out that shooting the puck a lot doesn't result in goals because, heaven forbid, you don't just keep at it. They go back to old habits. They let the Flames just absolutely pepper Kevin Lankington, who surprisingly got the back-to-back start.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were all kind of like, when we saw him start against Montreal, like, oh, you're starting him this game?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's, like, hindsight's 2020, of course, but I was definitely like, really? Like, I don't think we have as good a chance against Habs, plus the 4-point nature of a game against Calgary, but whether he was tired or not, Lankinen started against Calgary again. It doesn't matter if he was tried, Grandpa.
Yeah.
He had to go again.
And you know, he did okay. I mean,
I would say he did well.
Okay. The reason I say okay is, and this is sort of plays true, not so much specifically to Lankinen, but the team as a whole in sort of 2 back-to-back nights. It was very clear as to who the team was that happened to have 2 games in 2 nights. Lankinen did feel to me to be the goaltender who was maybe not as fresh as he was the game previous.
Yeah, sure. But I do think, like, the Canucks defense didn't help.
Fair play.
Because there were definitely moments where you're just like, oh, I wouldn't have made that call as an official, but I also wouldn't have done that as a defender.
Yeah.
Vancouver Canucks, yeah.
Pius Suter got himself his 17th goal of the season. He was having a hell of a season, all things considered. Gets the Canucks the early lead. Problem is they can't hold on to it, and Nazem Kadri scores. Good for my hockey pool, I needed goals. Bad if you happen to be a Canucks fan like I am, though. Teams go in, all square into the second. Second period, you have all the goals. Power play goals, shorthanded goals. Jake DeBrusk from Hughes and Petey. Again, props to Petey, who is maybe back.
I think he's back.
I mean, that's what I said that after this game.
Those are the rumors, right?
It's just like, I've said this to a few people now. I'm a Canucks fan. I have trust issues.
Of course. Do you know who I also have trust issues with? Sorry, Rick Tocchet. Like, Elias Pettersson, just keep him with Hoglander. They're only happy when they're together. I really think he has been shafted with his, don't get me wrong, Elias Pettersson's play is not the fault of Rick Tocchet. But I do think he's been shafted with his line deployment. Mm-hmm. And now he's stuck with Hoglander. I'm not saying, hey, presto, it's working. That's the answer to everything.
Okay, early in the season, their metrics were off the charts, and they got split up.
Yeah.
You can think what you want of the fancy stats, but there was visible...
Yeah.
Production. Split
and I don't
up,
think
goes away.
I don't think that Pettersson necessarily would have performed just as he is or back to his best.
I know you're not saying that.
But I do think that they are better together.
Mm-hmm.
And that is even showed in this awful game that I was privileged to pay to watch today.
Yeah, which we'll get to in a moment. So Vancouver takes themselves another lead. Jake DeBrusk on the power play, as I mentioned. Power play is suddenly finding its groove, something that has been a problem all season long.
Although not so much the PK, which has actually done pretty well of late.
Now, I was going to say the power play finding its groove. The defensive struggles exist in all aspects of the Vancouver Canucks game.
Yes.
And, Jonathan Huberdeau goes and finds himself an opportunity for a shorthanded goal. Something the Vancouver Canucks, was it last season, never gave up until late. And this season, they're playing catch-up all season long. But Huberdeau also scores on the power play minutes after that.
Very side note, because this is not the reason that Canucks were necessarily tied at the end of 3 periods, but the officiating was absolutely whack.
What are you talking about? It was a clean hit. Zari on DPD, totally clean. I mean, the fact that he got 2 minutes was just overkill. That was the referees, managing the game.
Oh, yeah. Also, the fact that, they wouldn't call when Canucks and Calgary were tied. They wouldn't call anything in the last 5 minutes.
Because they don't want to have an impact, so therefore they have an impact by not having an impact.
Mind-blowing. Anyway, NHL.
Yeah, it is what it is. We should not be surprised by what it is that we see. The Vancouver Canucks, though, came out determined, or maybe the team came out determined, but Petey came out with something to prove. He, for argument's sake, won the 3rd period.
Sure, yeah, 100%.
He, again, might be back. Could be.
There are rumors.
Yeah, there are rumors. But he looked like old Petey. We've seen glimpses of old Petey. 3rd period against the Calgary Flames, old Petey. The Petey we're accustomed to. The Petey that suggests to you that the Vancouver Canucks are a team to be reckoned with when he's on his game. And, when he scored that goal, everyone sort of buys back in. Team looks re-energized. If it, wasn't for, it was Wolf in net for the Flames, right?
Mm-hmm. I think. I mean, he's literally the only reason they're competing. So, yes.
Yeah, I mean,
of course it was Dustin Wolf.
He would have, he was the reason that the Flames made it to overtime in my mind. We then got treated to a game of overtime hockey, which sucks.
I mean, it does, but it's just Canucks had the puck for 90% of overtime.
Well, no, so I shouldn't. I want to clarify here. I like 3-on-3 overtime hockey. In fact, I've said many times extend it. But now that teams have figured out that one of the best ways to not lose 3-on-3 hockey is to simply skate around all of the open ice with the puck, including back to your own, defensive end.
It's kind of but it's also what. Yeah, I agree, but it's kind of like if you have the puck for 95% of the time, you can't keep going forward.
No, I'm not suggesting it's forward all the time, but I had suggested, and hear me out, that they extend 3-on-3 overtime for 10 minutes from 5, so
which I'm fine with.
10-minute period, and that they institute some form of half ice rule. Now, how that would be applied, there's a variety of suggestions that people replied to me with when I shared on social. One of them, it says like basketball, no over and back. So once you cross the center line, you can't bring it back to your side of the center line. Someone else had said, "Oh, just turn it into make that the blue line." Now I'm not wanting to have this giant defensive end. That's what I'm suggesting.
That's the thing. I don't know if you can change hockey that much.
And then others are suggesting shot clock. But what I don't like is the...
I honestly think the 10 minutes would be interesting enough.
Yeah?
Let's try that first of all.
Okay.
And that's the thing. It's also coming from a person that loves shootouts.
Well, which we had in this game. And that's what I was going to ask you is that the shootout, I actually may have said, oh, wasn't that bad.
Yeah, because nothing was happening in overtime.
Yeah.
Because that was kind of proof positive of So my point of view, which I'm sure everyone's heard before, but I'll just go over it quickly, is I would say that it's not that I think that shootouts are a good way to decide games. I just think that if you've gone for 65 minutes of playing with one thing and it's proved that you can't get there, then yes, that's why shootouts are a fun way to decide it. But yeah, I think I like shootouts being rare, but I still like them. But like, yeah, I think maybe if you had 70 minutes of hockey and then you still can't decide, that's when it should go to a shootout. But yeah.
Again, I'm not saying no shootouts. I don't like them, but I still see there being a purpose. I'd rather there being a shootout than a tie, but I also believe that the game should be worth a variety of different points. 3 for a regulation
I mean,
win.
PWHL has figured it out 3-2-1.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. Vancouver also won in the shootout, which is maybe one of the reasons why you and I could potentially be saying we liked it.
Well, I'm on the record as liking it anyway. But,
I know you are.
Connor Garland winning it in a shootout.
This celebration.
Sorry, but is that not a really cool moment?
Yeah. He was pumped.
Sorry, shootout haters. That was very, very cool.
Yeah. So the Zari hit that I made light of, the fact that he got 2 games, I was impressed with the league.
It's fun to be impressed with the league briefly, isn't it?
It was. I mean, I would have been more impressed if it was dealt with on the ice at the time.
Yeah, just anything more than a 2 game. Because it was seen, right? Like, that's kind of why you're more like, okay, they got it so wrong because they saw it and they said 2-minute penalty.
Yeah. Lots of Flames fans not too happy with it, suggesting that DPD is soft.
They're also not happy because they live in Calgary.
I like. That's the type. This is what's so surreal to me. That's the type of hit that even the hardcore hockey has a code believers want enforcers to be on the ice to deal with, to keep the game honest, to keep that crap out, and yet they're upset when the league comes down hard. I'm sorry. Vancouver Canucks, though, do get the important 2 points. They concede 1 to a team that they're in the mix with. Not ideal, but if you're going to get points, get 2 and not 1. It's better than none. And Vancouver then comes back home to take on the Chicago Blackhawks. Future Vancouver Canuck Connor Bedard and notorious NHL goon.
2 game misconducts in a row.
Okay, the first one, I
don't know. I haven't looked more into it, to be fair, but is there anything else has come out as to what he said?
No, and there's this content creator called I think it's John Boy, and he reviews.
That's also the name of a cricket.
Oh, well.
Content creator. Interesting. Anyway, go ahead.
He reviews, videos that get sent to him and whatnot, and he sort of lip reads. I mean, I don't think he's a lip reader, but what he was putting, you can sort of see how, that's what they were probably saying.
Okay.
Bedard was not saying.
Just can't imagine it. Yeah.
Anything that egregious based, you're looking at him no, I can usually lip read the words you're not supposed to say on TV.
Yeah, at least close enough to know,
The only thing I could think of was that he had said something earlier, and it was the, blink at me wrong and I'm going to run you out, but
it's a weird one.
It does.
But anyway.
Let's talk a little bit about the Canucks and the Blackhawks. Whatever ailed the Vancouver Canucks in the offense department was fixed for one night.
I mean, weird how Chicago provide those bombs.
There were almost as many goals as shots. Mm-hmm. Now, if I were to tell you that the Vancouver Canucks would get 15 shots on net, do you think they'd win that game? And do you think that they'd win that game by scoring 6 goals out of those 15 shots?
I mean, now that I'm familiar with the last few months of Canucks, maybe. But it is a bit mad.
Vancouver controlled this game from puck drop to final horn. It was never in doubt. The Blackhawks got themselves a couple of goals. Shilos was in net. And
he was definitely in that. We can't argue with that. He was fine.
Well, he was, but he was in net. It's just so surreal to me, though, that when you look at the game, that the Vancouver Canucks were able to capitalize with, a not so good team in the rink, but still with a not so good team in the rink could not muster consistent offensive opportunities.
Yeah.
4 shots in the first period, 2 goals. Like, never in a million years will they go and have, greater than 50% success. Like the third period, 3 goals, 5 shots. That is just nuts. And again,
And it is a little bit like, okay, you do what you need to do to beat the team in front of you. You don't necessarily need to do more than that.
No, and I know there are people out there that would go a step further from what you're saying and were to suggest, I don't care if they score 1 goal on 1 shot as long as they get the wins. I do not care. I agree. Wins are what's most important no matter how you get them. But if you can't go and dominate a team that you should be dominating in all aspects of the game, what we saw tonight is the result.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's kind of like, it's fine to just absolutely do only what you need versus a team like Chicago, especially when you're in, like, you have 2 back-to-backs in a week. That's fine. But yeah, like when you see a game like tonight, you're very much reminded of this isn't just by design. This is kind of who the team is.
Yeah. I mean, it was, for me, good from a hockey pool. Quinn was the reason why I got back into this week's battle. Thank you, Quinn. Petey, again, looked good. Rumors have it he might be back.
Yeah.
Vancouver wins 6-2. But, again, this is game 1 of a back-to-back, and the fact that Silas got the start led everyone to believe that Lankinen would start against the Utah Hockey Club. And sure enough, Lankinen did. Now, Lankinen looked, I feel, better against Utah than he did against Calgary. Granted, he didn't have to play last night or the night before, depending on when you're listening to it, but last night for you and I. But the team in front of him sure looked like a team who had played 2 games in 2 nights. Yep. Twice in 5 days. Whatever it was, 6 days, like.
It was definitely slow. Like, watching the game last night, I was definitely thinking, oh, I'm going to the game tomorrow. This doesn't look like I am worried that it's obviously going to be a bit lackluster.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, super lackluster from both teams.
Mm-hmm. It was boring hockey.
It was boring hockey. Very boring hockey. I mean,
I don't fault Utah for the boring hockey. It was Vancouver's fault.
That honestly wasn't someone I loved in this. Even Quinn Hughes kept missing pucks,
Well, okay.
making uncharacteristic, I would say, errors.
The 4-minute power play they had late in the third period after, Besser ate a stick. They had a good 15 seconds, maybe 20 seconds, the start of that power play. And then, for whatever reason, couldn't break out of their own end.
Yeah.
They passed, the suggestion that maybe they're gripping their sticks too hard, they're panicking. I think, Dave Tomlinson had mentioned that they just need to take a breath, slow it down, take a breath. And what did they proceed to do? Errant pass.
Yeah, honestly, it was just really disappointing because Utah was so lackluster as well that it just felt like such a missed opportunity to conserve energy but still win the game.
Well,
yeah,
but
I don't know.
Not only conserve energy, Utah, they played in all regards smart hockey once they got the lead. They were icing the puck. They were just dumping it out, making smart and safe plays. They weren't doing really anything other than just make the Vancouver Canucks' life a little bit more difficult by not allowing them the opportunity to have sort of the easy entry or the easy transition. And Vancouver, for whatever reason, accepted that as their reality and would then in turn make mistakes. Like all opportunities that Utah had in the third period, and they had a few, came from Canucks mistakes. Now, that happens when you're down a goal, you play a little fast and loose.
Yeah.
But it wasn't fast.
Yeah. 100% wasn't fast. Yeah, I think it was just really disappointing because it was just like, I thought during the first period especially, the officiating was god awful. But like, Canucks went past that, like, they killed penalties. They played fine at 4-4. Like, the stage was set at the second period, right? To, like, capitalize. And, like, 2 minutes, 37 in, they score a goal. Power play goal. The stage is set to build on that and just, like, kind of, like, score one more goal. Boring hockey, that's fine. Minimum effort. But they just, like... I can't really pick anyone out that I liked tonight.
I like Lekkerimaki.
Yeah, he had a couple good passes.
Right. And I think it might be his youth. He didn't realize that people were gripping their sticks hard. Like he seemed to, we'd use the give a F meter that we used to bring out for a former Vancouver Canuck. He didn't realize that others may not have had any Fs to give. But I'm stretching here. I'm trying to be positive in my report on what happened in tonight's game. I mean, the Vancouver Canucks losing actually to Utah of all teams have put themselves in a quandary. As of right now, as of us recording this, the Vancouver Canucks still hold on to the last wildcard spot. That said, they're only holding on to it because they've played one fewer game than St. Louis Blues, who have equal number of points. But 2 points behind both of them.
Completely...
Blues are hot.
Blues are hot. Okay, yeah. That's a good way to put it. They won 7-2 tonight?
Yeah, I mean... So I noticed that you look at the wild card teams in the West. The Wild and the Canucks are both dash goal difference teams. Wild are -10, Canucks are -18. And in the West,
Wild lost last night.
Yeah, in the West, the positive goal differential are top three in both of the divisions. But then you have the St. Louis Blues, who are 0. They don't have a wild card spot, but they are 0 goal differential. They are an aberration because nearly everyone in the West is a dash team. And if you're not, you're top 3 in your division. Like, it's kind of weird that way.
Isn't it hilarious, though, literally if you look at the league standings, there's a 10-point difference between first and second.
It's the NHL. But...
Isn't that crazy? Like, Winnipeg just got off to such a hot start. Yeah, anyway.
They did. And also, good for my pool that they did.
Yeah, sure.
But the problem is that the Vancouver Canucks have 2 games more than the Flames. They have, equal number of games as Utah, but again, only have a 2-point lead over these teams. And have put themselves in a position that we're getting to that point where we could almost suggest they don't control their destiny. Like, we are at that point of the season where you controlling your destiny and making the playoffs is not within your control based on the way you're currently playing. And
yeah,
everyone knows that the family wants those 2 playoff games because that's their Stanley Cup.
I mean, 100%. It's just kind of like, maybe we make it. Maybe it's in someone else's hands on the last day. But either way, like, neither of us have high hopes in the playoffs, right? It's just, like...
hey, you got to be in it to win it. Everything's possible.
Yes, the St. Louis Blues model. Yes.
So the Vancouver Canucks have one more game at home before they head out on the road for the rest of the month. Tuesday night, they take on the Winnipeg Jets. Then they're off to St. Louis for a game on Thursday. To New York for a nice 10 a.m. start.
JT regroup. Yeah.
So of those 3 games, Anna, Winnipeg at home, Blues on the road, Rangers on the road, what say you?
I say they beat the Rangers.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I know Canucks hate morning hockey, but I say they hate JT more than morning hockey.
Okay.
Oops. Did I say that? I say they get 1 point out of the Blues, and I say they lose to Winnipeg.
Okay. That
3
is
points.
far more optimistic than me.
I'm so positive and optimistic.
You are. I mean, so I struggle to see how the Vancouver Canucks beat the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah.
Right. I just
Yeah.
the Jets are a better team on paper. They've been a better team on
than
ice.
the rest of the league by 10 points.
Yeah. So it's hard for me to see that as being a win. Then we go on the road to the Blues. The Blues are, as I had said earlier, finding out they're a little bit hot right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's still Jordan Binnington in goal, just saying.
Yeah, but it's also the Vancouver Canucks and talking hockey. Like, I just...
Yeah.
Like, if I were to be forced to pick a game they could win, this might be it, but it's not. And then I struggle to see how the Vancouver Canucks win in New York, not because it's the Rangers, but because it's the Rangers and it's an early start. The Vancouver Canucks are notoriously horrible.
They hate morning
with early
hockey.
start.
I agree. But my point is, they don't like JT Miller.
I know, but JT Miller don't like them.
Agree. Honestly, I heard someone say today at the game, oh, we miss JT. And I'm like, 100% we know we don't. And literally, even if you were the biggest... No, but like, if you were the biggest JT stan and you're just seeing what he's doing in New York, he was never going to find that here.
No. I had a conversation with someone who was like, oh, the Canucks should have never, traded Petey. And I then said, well, what are your thoughts about Quinn? Like, if he has opinions, would they carry weight? And he's like, yeah, totally. I'm like, well, funny you should mention that, because Quinn came out and said, oh, Petey's a leader.
Yes.
Really,
we didn't talk about that. We were going to...
Really glad to have an opportunity to work with them. He plays the game the right way. Like, Quinn was speaking effusively about Petey to Quinn as well. Oh, I love my captain and all that jazz. But I think it's reinforcing that those two, they really see things similarly.
And I think Quinn maybe had a lot of patience with JT to a certain point. And as long as he was performing, he was ready to give him some leeway. But when he didn't, I think Quinn got quite sick of it. Yeah. Like many people. Not going to go into it. If you're very interested in this conversation, dive into Discord. Because we often talk about this.
So you say 3 points and I say 0. Does that seem right?
0?
I got 3 games, 0 points. I don't see a win. And I don't see a tie.
Wow.
I don't. It's just a bad string of hockey.
Negative.
I know, a horrible person. I was positive. I've been burned. I have trust issues.
Last thing on JT, I promise. But yeah, I did see some opinion retweeted onto my timeline. Can't even remember which one. But just about like Hoglander being like, oh, very innocently kind of saying, I wonder if he had a not so great relationship with JT because he seems to have been reborn since JT's gone.
Maybe. I don't know.
I literally can't think of 2 people that would be more different in personality. JT and Hoglander, like... So, yes, I'm not saying he was, like, actively beefing with JT because I don't think Hoglander would do that with anyone, but, like...
You never know.
Like, very different people. I'm sure he was happy to be on this side of the whole debacle.
Yeah, agreed. I think the other thing our listeners want to be on the other side of is Rewind. You're listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Anna and Chris.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on that.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? And that because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
Have you heard the rumors?
Are there rumors that, guess who's back? Back again.
Petey?
Petey's back. Tell a friend.
Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Nah. Is he, like, we've been, dancing around this all show.
He might be.
Is he back?
I think he might be.
I agree.
Even tonight, when I think no one was really there, Petey was the closest to being there.
Well, if you watch that 4-minute power play in the third period,
Which, God bless you if you did.
when Petey had the puck, Utah gave him no space. Now, if a player isn't playing well, you generally don't cheat his direction. Because why? You're, taking less risk playing zone or smartly towards where he might need to dish it off.
Yeah.
But his refound game and ability to make magic happen when the puck is on his stick has teams paying attention. And we've seen this as well, in the past 3 games prior. Teams view Petey on the ice and have now come to the realization we need to play him much closer than we have. We can't give him the opportunity because it will make something happen. We've had that with Quinn all season long.
Yeah.
When he's been healthy, obviously.
Yeah.
But not with Petey. Petey is back.
Yeah. I think he's back. I do think, the way, we kind of talked before the production was there, which it's starting to be. It's, I think, premature to say the production is fully back. Mm-hmm. But, the way he was speaking about how he performed and how his season had gone, you do think, he was trying to take responsibility and really, sound more confident, and then you kind of act as is, right, before you perform as is. And he seemed to be, say the right things, and now he's doing the right things.
Where do you think the turning point was? I have an opinion.
Okay, please go ahead, and then I'll say my opinion.
If you recall, a couple of weeks back, he had come out, and I'd said he was trying to make light of the situation or joke about it, but he blamed the media for his struggles.
Right.
And we talked about,
and we kind of, yeah.
We
said it wasn't as serious as people were making it seem,
Correct.
But yes.
I think it was a practice or two later, he was then last off the ice so long that the media had all left before Petey had come in, and people see, now he's avoiding the media by staying out on the ice long. And I remember a couple of people what are you talking about?
Oh, really?
You're upset that the guy is doing what he needs to do to get his game right?
Yeah,
and
come on.
You're thinking the media problem. And then he had a press conference, I want to say the practice immediately following that one, where he had said, I got to, take a look at my game. I got to figure things out. I can't, I'm not blaming you. This is me.
Yeah.
I got to take responsibility.
I think that was post-game.
Or post-game. Okay, but it was within sort of a week or so. And one, I wonder, did Quinn pull him aside? Did someone he trusts sit down and say, hey, cut yourself some slack, but also maybe be a little bit humble in that experience. And it feels to me that whatever that was, we are seeing a different Pettersson. He is a little bit lighter in sort of that conversation. He is owning things. I think he always took responsibility. I believe he is a perfectionist to a fault. He is the type of player that I feel requires 100% out of him 100% of the time, not realizing that sometimes 80% is good enough. And that gets in the way. Like he, for simplicity's sake, gets in the way of himself. And whatever it was that got lifted off his shoulders has now resulted in a much more relaxed Pettersson. And that relaxed Pettersson has suddenly refound his game, which may have always been with him. He just was too tense to see it.
Can I just say my opinion of when the turning point was? It's when JT got traded.
Okay.
Or when he got told JT was traded. Can I say why that's the turning point, even though it doesn't seem that way?
Yeah, okay.
My opinion is that he is a human being and that was a horrific experience for him. Horrific might be too strong, but I think it was a bad experience for him. We don't know the full extent of everything.
Probably never will.
Yeah, rumors, whatever. But I think it took him that long to recover. And I think he was working on himself for a long time. And I think maybe the turning point we saw was actually him regaining himself after the recovering from the debacle with Miller. But I still think it's JT getting traded.
Okay. Can we agree that regardless of our turning points, the change was apparent?
Yes. And
based on what I described?
Yes, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
But I think the turning point for him was sooner than it was for us.
Okay. So I can't discount that because we have no clue what was going on. And I just
expecting him to be back to his best immediately after the trade was just bonkers.
Why I don't think I was of the opinion it would be like a light switch.
Or that the change would be apparent in his play even.
Yeah. I only discount that based on the fact that it wasn't gradual.
I agree, but I think it probably was within him.
Yeah, and if that doesn't take place, I don't think what we see happen right now happening.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
and either way,
they're both.
I think we're both of the agreement that it's turning the right way.
It is, and the Vancouver Canucks with a Petey who's refound his game is a Vancouver Canucks team that has playoff potential. There was no way that Quinn Hughes was going to be able to single-handedly carry this team into the playoffs on his shoulders.
And he's pretty close, but
yeah, it's very clear. Quinn on the ice, Vancouver Canucks much better than Quinn not on the ice. Quinn and a refound Petey, that's a scary team. Especially a team who, was showing signs of creativity. We didn't talk about the fact that Hedl took just a brutal hit.
Yes,
from,
let's briefly
Dickinson,
talk about that because
in the Chicago game, unpunished, still unpunished. Okay, so the Zary hit, NHL, you impressed me. I don't understand how Dickinson doesn't even get a penalty on the ice. And the thing is, he hit him in the numbers.
Yeah. I do think the Zary hit is bad, and I do think it's worthy of the 2-game suspension. But I do think it's more important to punish hits to the head, especially predatory hits to the head on people with concussion history.
Well, there'll be those that tell you, well, then that's not Dickinson's fault that Hedl has concussion history. But I contend that Dickinson hit him square in the numbers.
Yeah.
That hit is... there's a reason why there's a stop sign on junior hockey players' jerseys.
That's the thing. It's more... Yeah.
Reason alone.
It's more... Hedl's concussion history means you should take it more seriously as a league. You should look at it. Not necessarily that Dickinson should be more cautious, but it's more just okay, this is a player who's had concussion history. Let's take a deep look at this.
Yeah.
And how you can take a deep look at that and not conclude that it's really predatory and dangerous.
Yeah.
And
if it wasn't Heedle, if it was any other player, I'd still be wondering why Dickinson went unpunished.
And can we talk about how Kelly Hrudey and Ron McLean talked about Jason Dickinson, like on
old school hockey?
And literally none of what they said, it was so transparent because none of what they said was about the hit itself. None of it. There was no mitigation on the hit itself. It was purely on Jason Dickinson's season and the fact that he's struggling and the fact that he needs to earn a new contract. Like, that's the most insane justification to me. And it's so irresponsible from people of that caliber. And, like, literally there's 4 people in the country being listened to after a game.
So,
and those are 2 of them speaking that.
I mean, it's the era of hockey that these 2 have sort of
represent. Yeah,
like we
we
look back
were
at Don
conscious of that.
Cherry,
yeah,
and
but like
they're not a far stretch from Don.
And the fact that Ron McLean was seen as like a babysitter for Don Cherry, when I'm like, no, you're just Don Cherry 2.0. And like Kelly Hrudey, one, I think, and any Premier League fans can back me up on this, but like the fact that like Gary Neville, who I think has his limitations as a pundit, but can be good, and is absolutely awful as a co-commentator. And I think Kelly Hrudey has massive limitations as a pundit, but can be good in certain circumstances, but is awful as a color commentator. And I think you proved that on Wednesday against Calgary. But like, yeah, I mean, Kevin Rex is sorely missed. And I don't just say that from a Canucks perspective, like just as a common sense option. Like, I'm just so bored of the old white men with that old school mentality. Like, it's an insane thing to say that just because you're trying to earn another contract, it's okay to do those hits.
What do you know about hockey, Anna?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't play it freshly. I didn't even
You've never
grow
been
up
in a
with
room.
it.
You're not even Canadian.
Yeah, come on. And I'm a woman. Like,
oh.
And I'm under 40. Like, come on.
And you're a podcaster.
Get out of here.
Just
yeah.
Cherry on top.
I'm a basement dweller. Come on.
Yeah,
I actually literally am, but
I wholeheartedly agree with everything that you've said there. I think I when I sort of reference, whether from a different era, I'm discounting everything that they say, but I'm also maybe discounting far too much their impact.
Yeah,
they might have no impact on
massive impact,
but their impact on all the others, and that is something that I should not discount. You said Gary Neville, and I'm like, doesn't he coach the Portland Timbers? No, that is his younger brother, Phil.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Oh my God, Phil Neville. Phil Neville did actual damage to women's football in England, I think. Anyway.
I don't know much more of their career, so I can't talk to it.
The time.
I just know he currently coaches Portland Timbers. Actually.
Sure. Someone has to, I guess.
So, the NHL's not going to change. The hit on Heedle was brutal. The fact that they did something right with the Zary hit on Peterson, I can't explain why one over the other. And if you want to tell me it's because I've never been in the room and I've never played hockey and I am a podcaster, those are all true. But that doesn't discount the fact that what my eyes saw are things that I don't think anyone agrees should be in the league.
Tolkien, for some reason, still doesn't put Peterson in, even though apparently he's fine. But that's a different story.
Talking hockey.
Uh-huh.
One quick question before we look to wrap things up. Talkett's still without a deal. Is he back? Do you think this is if he makes the playoffs, he's back, and if he doesn't, he's not?
I think he's probably back either way.
Okay. I mean, we've seen other coaches in this situation.
Yeah.
Well, So anyhow, here we are, end of a show, end of a week, the week that was. We're going into a week that will be. One that you think there's points
That's
to be
how time
had.
works. Yeah.
Me, not so much. But if you've reached this point of the show and you haven't joined C4 Discord, discord.io/C4 podcast, it's where we have a lot of different conversations about hard-hitting stuff. Spoiler alert, we're a little bit progressive in our views and things, and if that hasn't become apparent by the time you've reached this point of a podcast episode...
But also,
don't know how to help you.
maybe we're a bit more blue in our language in there, but it's still, it's the same opinions. No, it's me.
I'm not. Well, okay. In fairness, you can. I have it set up so that the auto mod slaps others who try to be, and then you can always tell because they change the language. You can go to our website, which I fixed today, c4podcast.com. I wasn't aware that c4podcast.com was not working, and you needed to go to www.c4podcast.com. Fix that today.
Okay. Well
so the website's been up. I just didn't realize it wouldn't resolve properly. And you can follow us on all the social medias. We're at the C4 Podcast on X. We're at the Real C4 Podcast on Threads. And we're c4podcast.com on Blue Sky. But Anna, what final words of wisdom do you have for our listeners this week?
I'm trying to think of something that's not like controversial. Yeah, I miss Carson Soucy. Like just his face mainly, but you know, it's still something I miss, and I guess I get to see you on Saturday, so it'll be okay.
Final words of wisdom from me. Go sign up for my Whitecaps SC newsletter.
Oh yeah.
From 231.ca, and it'll forward you off to the email platform I'm using. You can just drop your email in there, and first newsletter arrives in your inbox on Tuesday. That is from 231.ca. Hashtag shameless plug. So
that.
Anna and I are off to record C4 Off the Rails, our show exclusively for those that support us either monthly or annually on Buy Me a Coffee, or as Anna and I like to call it,
Buy me a pint.
So if that's something that suits your fancy, go check that out. It is buymeacoffee.com/C4podcast, or if you go to our website, c4podcast.com, and click Buy Me a Coffee, you can support the show. But if you'd rather just throw a few bucks our way so you can actually quite literally buy us a pint, you can do that too. Entirely up to you. So on behalf of Anna, A403, myself, Chris at Lightforce, signing off this week's episode with We Out.